time to get your fix. Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Wow.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and you have decided for whatever reason to listen to another horrible game review. A few disclaimers as usual before we get into it. Number one, the word horrible in the title of this content does not refer to the game or DLC that I am reviewing, but much more the content itself. I do snap judgment reviews here. I get 5 to 10 hours with a game max. I'm just trying to give you an idea whether you're going to enjoy it right off the bat. That being said, that coupled with the fact that I think video games are one of the most subjective forms of art, I'm going to tell you the overall of this game, the pros and cons of this game, in my point of view, as all reviews are, whether or not I will be sticking with this game, but I will not be giving you a score to this review. And now I am left with the unenviable task of trying to do a snap judgment review on a game that's just not possible to be snap reviewed, and that is Kynseed. I wanted to do this review back in its early access, but again, I was having a hard time finding a way to do it. Kynseed is just not a game that lends itself to a snap judgment review, but I'm going to do the best I can here, and hopefully everybody thinks that I did an okay job. We'll have to see. So what is Kynseed? Kynseed is a 8-bit top-down game. It's a kind of one part farming simulator, one part relationship simulator. It is in the vein of Stardew Valley, but it is a much more fantasy / fairy tale setting. It's designed by I believe they're called Lion Studios, Lionhead, the Fable guys, ex-Fable developers who have moved over to this. It boasts a lot of freedom, which I believe you have. The idea behind the game is you are one of two twins, a girl or a boy, you can pick. And you get some small customization options because it is 8/16-bit graphics. And then after that, you are adopted by your long-lost uncle, who you're not 100% sure is your uncle, maybe just somebody who needed help on the farm, but you're adopted by him and he's relatively nice, and he takes you to his farm to help with the farm. And so you start to help with the farm, you meet people in town, you form relationships with them, and I found this very interesting in the game. Every character you can have a relationship with the exception of these certain characters that are called, I believe, Touched by the Gods characters. These are characters that allow you to get perks, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But the idea is you then play through a 2-week in-game tutorial where you kind of learn the ropes of the game, the farming, all the different jobs you could do, such as apothecary and blacksmithing. And each one of these jobs has its own separate minigame and own separate items that you need to collect in order to forge these items. And then, like I said, there's a lot of things you could do to make money off them. You'll also buy different things and forge some relationships in the beginning, giving gifts to people and raising their relationship with you. Pig auctions, fairs, selling stuff at a festival. Like, all these things happen in the week, and that's one of the, I don't want to say problems, but one of the reasons it's so hard to do a snap judgment review. This tutorial section is easily 5 hours by itself, creating kind of an interesting situation for me. In any case, during this tutorial section, you are visited by a god, Mr. something, I can't remember his name, and he basically tells you that, you know, you're chosen, that big things are coming, and that, you know, stuff's gonna happen to you. At the end of this tutorial session, spoilers, if you're, well, I'm not gonna go into it too far. Let's just say the tutorial session ends, you become an adult, and you end up inheriting the farm, and then the freedom to do whatever you want. And what's interesting in this is you could also buy all the businesses in either of the two towns that are offered on the map. The map is very large in comparison to things like, well, I only played so much Stardew Valley, but I would say this is bigger. I'm not 100% sure on that. One other thing you don't learn until you become an adult that is very cool is this game has a very fully realized combat system. Now, I know that Stardew has combat, but it's more like you swipe at monsters, kind of a clicky thing. With this, there is actually, you go into combat, it is a very specific way of doing it. It's completely its own sort of system, and it's a very cool and smooth system. I do have some problems with it. We'll get into that in pros and cons. But to activate the combat, you have to go to a specific part. Combat, you have to go to a specific part of the woods, and then it becomes almost like a roguelite side game to the actual game. And then, of course, you can earn perks by meeting people that give you special powers in all sorts of things, not just combat. You can also earn special perks in fishing. All of these things happen by doing tasks for the actual, mentors, which these are the characters that are touched by the gods that you can't touch. And yeah, that's the game. There is more to it. One of the big things and one of the big reasons I purchased this game is you actually can continue to play through your children. So you can get married, have children, and then those children can take over for you. I haven't gotten to that yet because of just the laid back feel of this game. The thing that you need to understand going in is that this game does not move fast in any way, shape, or form. It is trying to simulate something. It is trying to simulate that laid back, everyday feel. Because of that, 5 hours is nothing in this game. It's absolutely nothing. Even though you don't see that much new stuff, you kind of just have to live through these days. And that's both a plus and a minus, as you could tell by my voice, as what I'm going to say. But the one thing that I will give them is that that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to really make you experience this game and the game's world. They really want you to interact with it, and they want to give you the time to interact with it, so they don't just constantly bombard you with ways to propel the story forward. It's much more, okay, you did your one thing for the day, now spend your day getting to know the people around you. And I think that's really cool. I think it's cool in its own right. It, of course, makes it very hard for me to do this, but it is definitely what they're trying to do. So, let's get into pros and cons. Let's just do it. Let's get into the hard stuff. Alright, first of all, the pros, I want to right off the bat shout out combat. And I'm going to talk about combat in the cons too, but not the actual combat playing it. I found the combat to be absolutely fun. I found the combat to be one of the more interesting parts of this game, and one of the most engaging parts of this game. The combat was phenomenal. It is somehow this perfect balance of twitch reflexes combined with, turn-based stuff. And I really would love to see this combat system kind of copied in other games and brought to life in other games. Well, I'll explain why when we get to combat again in the cons, but yeah, the combat system is absolutely wonderful. My next pro has got to be the freedom in this game. I really enjoy how the game doesn't really tell you how to interact with it. It just puts down the rules and allows you to figure out what is best for you. I mean, yes, there are these tasks that you have to do every day, at least in the tutorial session. And probably to stay afloat in the adult section, which I've only played a very small portion of, you have these tasks to do. But hey, do you want to spend your day being a blacksmith? Go do that. You want to spend your day mixing potions? Go do that. You want to spend your day farming? Go do that. They also have an update coming to Own the Tavern, which I'm most excited for, which will bring me back 100%. And then you want to spend your day fighting monsters? Go do that. It basically gives you the freedom to kind of choose how you want to interact with the game without punishing you, without saying, oh, if you do that too much, you're not going to get the right story or whatever. Like, it doesn't punish you. It's just, hey, you have a farm now. Go do it what you want to do. And I imagine this is very similar to Stardew Valley in that. But I think that the relationship stuff in this is just, I like the idea of really being able to see the statistical raising of the relationships and see how I'm interacting with people. And I enjoy that. And if you really take the time to get into it, I think you will too, My last pro is the art is absolutely phenomenal in this. You can tell that all the landscapes are hand-drawn sprites, and it's just beautiful. It's like a Nintendo character is walking around a beautiful painting, and I just like it. I think it's really pretty. I think it's really interesting, and I enjoy it. All right, so let's get into the cons. All right, so cons. I'm not going to say the amount of time needed to get into this game is a con. We'll talk about that in the stick with it. But I do want to point out a couple cons that I noticed along the way. The biggest one that I have to say, though, is the lack of the use of the combat system. This combat system is glorious. It's absolutely a glorious combat system. From start to finish, I think it's one of the most interesting combat systems, and I think it could be just built on, easily built on. Here's my problem, though. Combat doesn't just happen to you, ever. There's no random encounters. There's no, getting chased. There was a couple, and it doesn't happen to you at all during the childlike 2-week portion of the tutorial portion of the game. So you don't even know combat's in the game until you become an adult. And I think that, that's kind of a weakness, because this game's combat system is absolutely so phenomenal. And as cool as this game is, it takes a certain kind of person to not get a little bored sometimes with it. Just the walking around and doing the menial tasks. If there was a way that you could slip in an encounter every so often, that would really break the monotony. In addition to that, there are so many different places that the combat would make sense that it's just not. Such as there's a mission where, in the tutorial section, when I thought I was going to experience combat for the first time, where the blacksmith sends you into a scary mine to get some metal so that he can continue blacksmithing. And basically says you can, get a free whatever if you go get it for him. So I thought immediately that the scariness of the mine would be some monsters that crept in and you have to fight them. There's no monsters in the mine, nothing. The mine looks eerie, but other than that, there's no downside to being in the mine. Nothing negative happens to you. You go to the metal, you mine the metal, then you leave the mine. Stuff like that, that's a perfect place for a combat scenario. And I'm not talking about a Final Fantasy combat every 10 minutes sort of situation or combat every 10 seconds sort of situation. But there are some places where combat would just make sense in the open world. Again, I do want to also stress that I've only been able to fit in 12 hours of this game, which is more than I usually do for a Snap Judgment, but the game's pacing is incredibly slow, and combat may spread later. I don't know, but from what I can understand, it doesn't. There is a specific doorway in a specific area that if you walk through it, you enter the combat ring, basically like a combat quest in the forest, and it turns into kind of like a roguelite. You do a bunch of combats in a row until you either die, you're knocked out, or you walk away with what you've collected so far. Which is cool. I'm not saying it's not. It's just the combat is so good. Not only that, there's so much of this game that seems pointed at the combat for it to just not exist anywhere but that place. There's 2 different masters that you can talk to and 2 completely different perk trees to level up, both melee and ranged, in order to do this, and yet, for what? This is the only place you do it. I don't understand why this combat just isn't used more often in the game or leveraged. I think it is one of the most unique parts of this game, and I think it's the biggest miss on this game, in my opinion. So am I going to stick with it? Well, before I'm going to stick with it, I want to just give a final thoughts kind of section. This is impossible to Snap Judgment review because, like I said, for you to really understand this game, you have to play at least 5 hours, probably more. And honestly, I'm at 12 and I haven't even gotten married yet. Okay? So that is a big issue for me. So On the snap judgment review, if you are just a dad who's just trying to play something, I mean, that's what these are made for. This probably isn't the game for you because it's going to take too long to get through, unless you're somebody who just wants to go to a happy place for a couple hours a day. Like, then this might be. But, like, if you want something that's going to, like, be an instant escape, well, it is kind of an instant escape. But if you want something to be, like, action, right off the bat, fun, this just isn't that. It's more like a slow burn. It's more something you experience. It's a picnic on a Saturday afternoon, or a day in the park with your kid. It is not like just. It's not an action movie. You know. It's not Call of Duty. I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is the first time I've come across this with the Snap Judgment review where I'm having a hard time kind of giving the thoughts on it because of this. But as far as whether or not I'm going to stick with it, yeah, I'm going to stick with it. I like it. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to try to anyway. Again, I have a lot of projects that I work on that I got to jump off of it for, so I give very little time to just play for myself. But yeah, when I'm playing for myself, I might put some time into this, especially if I've had a very busy day and I want to just relax and just do some tasks. I think this game hits that itch, it hits that niche, which is nice. I really enjoy it. All the mini games also for all of the different jobs have been phenomenal so far. They're really intuitive and interesting, and it's not just like a hit X 6 times or whatever. So yeah. Alright, so that was my probably roughest review so far of Kynseed. Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Probably got it wrong. You guys can tell me in the comments below, or you can contact me on Facebook at OldManGamingTH, Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. Link is in the description below. Influences and all of our shows from there. And yeah, probably doing 1 or 2 more reviews before I take another break, and excited about it. See you guys soon.